welcome to Primetime, everybody. This is episode 21, and tonight we are breaking down Jordan Peele's first masterpiece in the trilogy, Get Out. Because last week we talked about, or last episode I should say, we talked about Nope. So we're going back and kind of breaking down Get Out and us leaning into the Nope. So it kind of all ties in together. I'm your host, Hunter Chambliss, and I'm joined by my co-host, Chad and Kerri. How's it going, guys?
Going great.
Behold, the coagula.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. Maybe that's
so
what
yes.
we'll
So yes, today we are breaking down Jordan Peele's Get Out. I am super excited to get into this discussion because there is a lot of fan theories. There's a lot of, different people have interpretations of what this movie actually means. So to get into what it means to us, what it means to maybe other people, get into theories, it's gonna be very exciting, guys. Let's start off with our non-spoiler, I guess non-spoilerish thoughts on the movie before we get into more detail. So, Chad and Kerri, you guys can start with yours if you would like.
Yeah, well, I mean, Get Out is one of those movies that came out and became an instant classic. People were going to see this at first and then telling everyone, it grew with word of mouth. Jordan Peele was always one of those guys that was just like a Mad TV, and then going on to Key and Peele and stuff like that. He was just a comedy guy, a comedy actor, and a very good one. So to see him transition to directing, we didn't really know what to expect. Even that original trailer that we got, we didn't know what to expect from this movie. Like, what is this? And then you finally see it, and then you realize, okay, this guy actually has something to say. He knows how to execute it well, because some people struggle with that. Like, they have something to say, but they don't execute it well. He does all of that so well, I think, with each film he's done. But I think this is still his best one, his debut. And I think it's just because it does have so much to say. And just the way he says it through the genre of horror, I think really works for what he wants to say. We have so many other films that talk about racism and all this stuff, like, Do the Right Thing, and, so many other films. But this is one that puts the spotlight on, African Americans, and they're not super well represented in horror itself. So to see not only this be about racism and opening people's eyes to certain things about that, but also to have the filmmaker be African American and the star also, I think was really great. The movie itself, I think, is just really fun, crazy. It goes in places you're not expecting, and then by the end, you're like, I really want to watch this again because I didn't expect all of that to happen, and now I want to go and see certain characters who end up being something else. You may want to see it again to see little hints of that, and to see this whole thing unfold. It's a very trippy movie. Very, you can't watch this, I think, without being sucked in, almost like you're being sucked into something I can't talk about right now. And, it's hard to really talk about it without getting into spoilers, but I think this movie's a masterpiece, and it's been out for 5 years, and I just still think it just holds up so well, and I don't think I think it's just going to stand the test of time, to be honest. One of the greatest horror movies ever made.
Yeah, Kerri, on to your non-spoiler thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. This is one of the best, if not the best, one of the best 2010s horror movies. One of the best horror movies ever made. One of the few genre movies that has been nominated for Best Picture.
Oh, yeah.
Deservedly so.
Yep.
And I think sometimes we forget that this movie came out in I think January or February, and it still got an Oscar nomination. It got an extended releases in theaters because people kept demanding to go and see it. And this is probably the first horror film. I know Chad and I went and saw it as horror fans, but after we saw it, we had so many people in our lives who do not like horror movies at all, and when we saw this movie and absolutely loved it. So I think one, it brought at least some people into this genre and made them see that horror can be something a little different than maybe just a slasher or just a haunted house movie. Maybe that's not everyone's style. I know it's all of our style. We love it, but
Yeah, it is.
and this movie, I mean, it was just so groundbreaking in every way. I mean, to have Jordan Peele, like Chad said, this guy who did comedy just come out of nowhere, and at least to us, I mean, maybe to other people this was kind of expected, but at least to us, he came out of nowhere from the comedy world and made a horror film that got nominated for Best Picture, his first directed feature. It is completely wild, and it is so deserving. Like, the messages in this movie are complex and I think necessary. I mean, it's only been 5 years since it was released. This movie is still. Well, I mean, I imagine it is going to hold up. It is still. It hopefully maybe won't be. It'll be reminiscent of the time we live in now. I hope it won't.
Yeah.
Be quite as relevant in the future. Hopefully, things in our country get better, but
Hopefully.
hard to say that will actually happen. I mean, the acting is incredible. The cinematography, the music is incredible.
Yes.
Everything about this movie is just amazing. And I guess if I can't imagine you are watching this video if you haven't seen Get Out. I would be honestly very shocked because it's been out for 5 years and it's one of the most popular horror movies that's come out in the past 5 years. But if you haven't seen it for some reason, or if there's someone you know who hasn't seen it, this is a great movie to show someone who's even not into horror.
Yeah, and just really quick, just to add one thing to piggyback on something you said when you talked about, this being Jordan Peele's first foray into horror, and we've seen other really great horror films since then that he's done. But I watched a video where he was talking to a college class, and he was basically saying that was always his goal, that was always his dream. He just never knew if it was achievable until he saw, other people people that looked like him actually win awards and stuff. I think he said that when he saw Whoopi Goldberg won an award for Ghost or whatever, he was like, it's actually attainable for somebody like me. And so I think it's a special film to him and to us because of that. Because now we have the great director. I don't even want to say horror director because other films kind of straddle the line a little bit. And, I can't wait to see what he does. Maybe not even in the horror genre. Maybe he'll expand a little more. But if he wants to stay in horror, that's also completely fine with me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, watching this movie the first time is a very interesting experience because I went into it kind of skeptical. I was like, okay, I love Jordan Peele. I love Key and Peele. I love how he writes his comedy. But I was like, I don't know how that's going to translate to a horror film because I was thinking it was going to be kind of more on the jokey side. What's great is Get Out balances great horror and great comedy. It gives you just enough comedy to make it enjoyable without sucking the life out of you for an hour and a half, 2 hours. So Peele found that great balance of comedy and horror, which we've seen in all of his movies, but especially I think it's masterful done here in Get Out because he has to balance a very realistic, like horrifying, what I'm trying to say, backstory, and give us just enough to see it through his eyes, love our main character, and then also give us levity to be okay. I can breathe in certain moments now. I can laugh along with these characters. The writing is incredible. I think some of the best characters came out of Get Out in the Jordan Peele universe. I love like Chris and Rose and all them. I love their collective. Always gonna happen at least once, huh? But I just love how everyone has great chemistry with each other, which is something that we've seen in all three of Peele's movies. Is the cast that he brings on always have great chemistry on screen with each other. Like no one feels out of place in any of his films, and that continues here in Get Out. There's a lot of theories. There's a lot of kind of adding to your own interpretation, which I love. It's not just this is the story and this is what the director meant, but you can also take a look at the film and be like, okay, I can see it from this way or this angle or whatever, and none of them are really incorrect when you think about it, which is the great, which would what makes this movie great is that 5 people can watch it and get 5 different outcomes of what the movie meant to them. So I think this movie is just a masterpiece.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback up a couple things you said that gave me some good thoughts is the balance between comedy and horror that you said, which I think is so interesting because I think they're all oftentimes related. Because while we've seen in Key and Peele sketches that sometimes they do like horror style sketches that are really fun, but also very funny. Because and then that's also kind of one of the big things that horror elicits out in people is not just screams but laughter because of maybe you're uncomfortable, it's fun to be scared, stuff like that, but then also and how you go about making comedy or making a great joke or how you go about making great horror or making a great scare is kind of catching people off guard. I think both types of genre catches people off guard. Like the greatest comedy is you're going down a road and then the punchline is something that wasn't expected, and then that's what really gets you. And that's kind of the same thing with horror is that you're going down a hallway, something
And then
jumps
something
out at
jumps
you,
out.
or maybe there's a fake out and then something else jumps out and it didn't go the way you thought it was going to go, and that really gets you. And that also actually happens in this movie a couple times with the jump scares.
Multiple times.
And then the other thing, and you guys can piggyback off of this or go somewhere else with it, is the interpretation. I was just talking to Kerri about this because we just finished watching Get Out for, I don't know how many times we've seen it now. Maybe less than 10 if we're being honest, but still, like,
I watched it like 5 times, I would say.
Overall, yeah. I mean, it's hard to remember every single time, but interpretation, and you're talking about like not just Jordan Peele's interpretation of the film, what he meant when he made all of these choices, for the film, but also like how we collectively as the audience go and analyze this film and then like put our own spin on the film or interpretation on the film. It's almost like how film is like a living, breathing thing where you're constantly recreating this film over and over in your head when you talk with other people. We're doing right now stuff like for example, and can we lift the spoiler thing now?
Yes.
Spoiler warning. When
for a 5-year-old movie,
right? When her name's Rose, right? Rose gets recontextualized at the end to be a villainous character. They have the thing with the cereal and the milk being separate, and that is one of the classic scenes that everybody loves to talk about. How that's like one of the weirdest things you can do, and it shows just how much of a serial killer, crazy person he actually is. And I think that's what Jordan Peele said that he always meant, is just to make it be really weird and like to show that she's messed up in the head or whatever. But also you can kind of interpret that as separation of the races and stuff like that. So there's different things,
colors and the whites.
Yep. You can like extrapolate like the main themes of the film, and you can like attribute that to everything. Is he trying to say something about race with this? And like, is the deer symbolizing the Armitage, the deep Armitage hatred of black people, where it's like
That's what I got on my last one I watched, which is weird. I watch it every time and notice something different. I'm like, okay, the way that he is like so against the deers,
Yeah.
and then knowing at the end, you're just like, there has to be a meaning there somewhere.
Because he says something like, every time one dies or
On the
whatever.
streets.
Yeah, in the streets, exactly. He's like, I'm thinking, oh, that's just it's a step.
That's a start.
It's a start. It's a good start. And it's like you did a service or whatever for killing
Mm-hmm.
that deer. And it's almost like, he's saying that, but he's not talking about deer. He's talking about other races and things like
Yeah.
that, maybe that don't look like him, that he thinks is different. And then he's murdered by the head of the deer, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Which again, so he's killed by an adult buck's head, and if you look at the term buck, it's an athletic, more than saying African American athlete is known as a buck. So the fact that Chris stabs him with a buck is also adding two and two together.
Yeah, and it's also kind of like cool because this just popped in my head where they had the thing where they're talking about the Armitage's dad, the grandpa, and being defeated
Jesse
by
Owens.
Jesse Owens, and it's
and
like
that's why Walter always runs everywhere.
Yeah, and
because he's trying to beat Jesse.
Yeah, but then you get to see that. Always forgetting the names. What is the name of Daniel Kaluuya's character in the movie?
Chris.
Oh, Chris. Thank you. Where Chris actually one-ups him and kills him. It's like he never got over it. He was one-upped by the other guy, and so
yeah. So funny
too.
enough about that, Jordan Peele in an interview said that he had a line in the script that he took out because it was like too on the nose. But when Walter is chasing down Chris at the end of the movie, and he gets on him and he starts attacking him, Walter was supposed to say, "I finally got you, Jesse," or "I finally beat you, Jesse." And I was like, I'm glad he took that out of the movie because that would have been a little too ham-fisted on the messages.
Yeah, that's the kind of the thing is you don't want to just spell out everything for your audience that you're trying to say. Say it with action. Say it with the visual medium and character reactions and all that stuff.
Well, and I think, like you said, Hunter, this is a movie where when you immediately watch it, I think you get a lot of the major themes. But every time you rewatch it, and we've all rewatched it several times now, you get more and more different kinds of meanings out of the entire film. And I think that's that shows how Jordan Peele is showing you rather than telling you these metaphors and these things. Like, it's not some of the themes are get a little bit more obviously, but all of the themes really are things you are thinking about. It's not like he's straight up telling you everything.
No, and that's why it's so masterful. It's just like you look at like Hunter mentioned Kerri mentioned the cinematography earlier, where it was like films like this, and I'm going to shout out another one that we should cover at some point because it's another masterpiece that I think should have won Best Picture, The Invisible Man.
We will, definitely.
Because I think that movie is another one that has so many great themes, but also like the way it shows you, it doesn't tell you, and just the way that like the director is so genius in moving the camera to highlight certain things. Like, that's what kind of the camera is supposed to be used for, is to show you things at the exact time you want the audience to see it. And I think there's a lot of like storytelling just with what the camera is doing in Get Out that I notice a little more when watching this, but maybe another time down the road when I decide to watch this again, I'll be paying attention to that like the whole time. But yeah, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, so I have written down some Get Out theories that have been proven true by Mr. Jordan Peele himself. So let's go through them, and then we can talk about if we saw it this way, what our interpretations are, etc. Okay?
All right, sounds good.
So the first one is, during the party scene when all the guests are arriving at the house, they are greeted by Walter and are embraced in a hug by Walter. A housekeeper would not greet the guests, but because they are the grandparents, it's their party they attended, and the guests show up in black cars just like the white people driving the black bodies.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard the one about the black cars.
You said this was confirmed?
Yes,
Oh.
by Jordan Peele. He said because in the movie Walter embraces the guest in a hug when they come out of the cars,
Mm-hmm.
and it's early on, which always seemed weird because like a housekeeper wouldn't embrace them in a hug unless they knew the person, and because we now know it's the grandpa and it's his party, it makes sense as to why he would be embracing all of them in a hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like the symbolism of them driving black cars is like, hey, they're driving black bodies.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And then of course you have Chris at the end of the movie when he's in the chair. He's freed by picking cotton.
Yeah, I did. I keep
In the
forgetting that.
chair.
I keep forgetting that symbolism of that. But yeah, like slavery. That's totally genius. I do love that as well. I mean, I love that just as the whole thing where when he first was going into the sunken place, which I think is brilliant.
Oh yeah, amazing.
Metaphor, but also just scary as a horror movie thing that he ends up in. But also when he first does is thrown into the sunken place, when she gets him deep into his guilt-ridden state where he's so vulnerable and so willing to be hypnotized. He's also like tearing up the armchair, so it like doesn't when she has him keep doing it, it makes sense that he would start to pry out the cotton from the chair, and then he would slowly realize like, hey, that's how I defeat them.
Yeah, Kerri, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's one I didn't notice the first time we watched the movie, and I think I distinctly remember actually my cousins watched it and my sister, and we all just had a 2-hour discussion, and we were like looking up online like what
Yep.
the symbolism of everything is, and it's like when you realize you hear that that's what it is, and you're like, oh yeah, of course that makes so much sense, and
Yeah.
that's just I don't know. I love the ways that Chris is able to outsmart him.
Yeah. So speaking of outsmarting people, this one is kind of long, so excuse me, but it says when Jeremy and Chris are having the MMA discussion at dinner, Jeremy scoffs at Chris for saying he took judo lessons and says he prefers jujitsu because you have to think 3 steps ahead. Then at the end of the movie, when Jeremy is fighting Chris, every time Chris goes to open the door, Jeremy kicks it closed. So Chris, thinking 3 steps ahead, goes in one more time to open the door, knowing that Jeremy will close it with his foot, and then Chris stabs him in the leg with the scissors, thinking that he can outsmart Jeremy at his own game.
Yeah, because Chris knows that Jeremy is not going to think that he's up to something if he keeps doing the same thing over and over and over. Just fail, because it's like that's the natural thing that someone who's being choked to death is going to try and do, is escape, not like run to find a weapon, but go to like the nearest escape point. And so he's just gonna. And he's also not thinking clearly when you're being choked out, so he's going to try to. You're right. He's going to try to escape out the door. So when he finally. Anyways, go ahead, Kerri. You have something.
No, I was just confused. Let's finish the film. I was just confused about how that.
Just go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'm done.
No. Okay. I didn't have anything to say. I was just confused about how that. I don't know. Maybe it was.
Okay. So the next one I have is when Rose at the beginning of the movie, when Rose is talking back to the cops about Chris giving him his ID, she wasn't doing it to protect him. It was a paper trail of them together on the way to the family house. So if Chris went missing, they would know where he went.
Yeah, that's one that, again, like I didn't realize till after I read kind of these theories and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, of course she wouldn't want a paper trail, and you think at the time that she's just sticking up for him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you think maybe it's kind of like the whole, I don't know, I don't want to know if it's like a white savior trope thing, but then you realize there's another level of it where it's like not the white person sticking up for someone and being like, that's not right, but it's like, yeah, it's another level to it that I think is really cool.
There we go. And then the last one, when Dean is giving Chris the tour of the house, he says that his mother loved her kitchen and kept a piece of her in here. And then the camera pans and shows Georgina.
Yeah.
I did notice that.
I noticed that on this exact rewatch, actually. Yeah.
So cool. It's like there's the mother.
Yeah, you're like, oh,
Yep, there's
yeah,
the mother.
there it is.
And then also in that same scene, he says that there is black mold in the basement. Black mold is also where the basement is where they kept the body transplant, but also black mold as in holding people inside of a mold, a black mold.
Like the sunken place, or just inside of a person?
Just inside a person. So like putting the brain inside a black body is putting the brain in a mold.
Yeah, okay. So there is a black mold then.
There is, yeah.
That's the coagula. Right.
So yeah, those are all the theories that I have written down. Do you guys have any more that you guys want to bring up?
I didn't really write anything down off the top of my head. I don't really have anything, but I mean, we can. I mean, unless Kerri has something, we can like talk about just like the other aspects of the movie other than theories.
Kerri?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Maybe as we talk more, I know there are like a lot more out there. I'm just not like. I think you touched on all of the like really major ones.
Yeah, I mean, as we talk about the movie, some other ones might come to us. For another starting point, I absolutely love Rod's character in this movie, played by Lil Rel Howery.
Howery.
I think he really makes the movie a lot of the times because you're trying to unravel this mystery and stuff like that, and then you just love the fact that Chris has a best friend who is going to be there for him, take care of his dog, and would never cheat on him with his girlfriend, which apparently they keep alluding to, something that he wants to do.
that whole car scene is amazing.
Fucking genius. But there's that, and then you love his commitment and love for the TS motherfucking A. Because they handle shit.
They handle
the shit. Fucking handle.
Yeah.
Great closing line.
He's most of the comic relief for the movie, and he really does like lighten the mood in those times when you're kind of most scared for Chris. And I do remember in the theater, at the very end, when you see the cop car and you think it's going to be the worst. You think
your heart drops.
And then Lil Ray Howery pops out, Rob pops out. I remember our whole theater clapped the first time we saw it, cheered.
The cheer moment.
Like a really beautiful, really felt like one of those experiences where you're like, oh, I'm glad to have been in the theater to see this.
Absolutely. And it's it's just like a moment where I love, and we can transition into talking about an alternate ending if you want now, or we can say later. But
I do have one more Rod line that I love. The running theme of he always thinks that Chris is is it like a sex slave ring?
Yeah.
And the scene where he tells that theory to the cops.
Yeah.
And she brings in multiple people just to laugh at him.
And it's just funny the way there's the look on her face the whole time, trying to understand what he's trying to say the whole time, and
then it cuts.
Just the way he explains it is so funny because he's just talking so much, and then he's just I think they're trapping black people and making them sex slaves.
Sex
Not just a
slaves.
regular slave, but
Oh my god.
yeah.
Not like regular slaves, sex slaves.
Yeah. Yeah, he's very funny in the movie.
Should we talk about Andre / Logan for a minute?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the movie actually,
Stanfield.
yeah, like Keith Stanfield. So the movie opens up with him, with Logan, like walking down the street, and then that's where
not Logan, but Andre.
Oh, Logan is his. Okay, yeah, Andre. So he's walking down the street, and I'm assuming it's Caleb that kidnaps him, or not Caleb, but Jeremy.
Yeah, the size and
Because Chris escapes in his car and finds the helmet thing he was wearing or whatever.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, like the night helmet or whatever.
Yeah.
I actually think for what little screen time he had in this film, he nailed it. Especially the scene where Chris takes his photo and then he snaps out of it and he's freaking out. Get out, man! Get out!
Like Keith Stanfield, this was like one of the first times I ever saw him, and since then, dude, just like Daniel Kaluuya, dude has been just a breakout star in so many different things. He's so great in the show Atlanta. If you haven't
I gotta watch that show.
Check that out because he's so good in it. And then like he was nominated for supporting actor for Judas and the Black Messiah. You know, and
then he was actually in one of my favorite films of 2018. It was called Sorry to Bother You.
Sorry to Bother You.
Which was a crazy movie.
Yeah, we got to check that out again at some point. But and then he was also in Uncut Gems. So he's just like blew up after Get Out. Tenet, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was he? A ton of other stuff.
He was in that.
I thought he was, but maybe I thought he's like.
I don't know. Maybe not.
Maybe. I know Denzel Washington's son is in there.
Pattinson. Yeah. I thought like Stanfield was in it, but maybe not. Maybe I'm like totally.
I think
confusing him with Robert Pattinson, who plays.
Interesting. I wouldn't put those two together, but yeah. But yeah, he's amazing in the film, and just for the little screen time, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
I love how he starts out the film, and he's just like, "Not gonna be me, not today."
Yeah, he was so smart. He was like, the suburbs. Nope, not today, not today.
Yep.
So yeah, amazing job by all the cast. Really, this is a very well acted cast, especially when you look at was it Dean is played by Bradley Whitford.
Yes.
And then
Catherine Keener.
Catherine Keener plays the mother, Missy Armitage.
Mm-hmm.
Great casting for the mom and dad. I think they.
Stephen Root as the
Stephen Root.
Man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stapler.
Yeah, and then of course, Little Ray Howery, Caleb Landry Jones, Allison Williams. Amazing, by the way, Allison Williams.
Yes.
Because the way the movie opens up, I love the way the movie opens up too. Because after Andre gets abducted, you immediately click into what is that? Childish Gambino song, Redbone. Childish Gambino.
Love that.
Yeah, which was an amazing song to open up, and then you have you see Chris and Rose together. And you used to see how much great chemistry the actors have with each other. So when the twist comes, it's even more heartbreaking because you're like, I liked you two together.
Yes, yeah. And speaking of Redbone, like the lyrics for that song is kind of saying what the movie's about, pretty much. Like, you know, better run. You know,
I didn't think about it.
Stay woke.
I didn't think about that. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. Like their chemistry, like they're just such a cute couple, and you know they're kind of there for each other. At one point,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's like, I really don't feel comfortable here. I just really want to leave. And she's like, let's go home. Screw this place.
Yeah.
And you get into that false sense of security, and And then I asked Kerri this, and I don't think we both really knew, but like, does she leave that door open for him to find out, or is that an accident?
I'm thinking it's an accident because when she knows that he found out, that's when the cover's blown. So she's just, okay, I'm gonna go full psychopath on you because you found out. Now I gotta kill you.
But I wonder, because we don't really know from watching this movie what they usually do if they don't find out. Maybe they make them find out every time, and that's how it goes down. And then
Fair.
the deviation is picking the cotton from the chair and killing Caleb Landry Jones, or nearly killing him, and then having to kill him again.
That's a good thing you pointed out, though, Chad, is that I never noticed that she's the one who leaves the door open, whether accidentally.
Yeah, me neither.
And even Allison Williams is so good in that even after you see the pictures and you're like pretty sure she's in on it, the way she fucking hunts for those keys and it's like, I'm trying to find them. If you're like, you carry a purse and it is a bag like that, isn't
I was just sitting there thinking, like, I could see me and Kerri in that situation. I'm like, Kerri, where are the keys? And she's like, I'm trying to find them. If we're in like a bad situation.
Which, funny enough, I was watching an interview that Allison Williams had with, I think it was Jimmy Fallon or something, and she said that people always come up to her and still think that Rose is a victim, and she's like, no, she is not. Yeah. That's not what it meant.
That might have been Seth Meyers, because I was just watching that.
Seth Meyers, yeah,
I was just watching that interview, and it was funny because this was like right when Get Out was still in the theaters. And he was talking to her, and he was like, all right, we're gonna do spoilers. And Allison,
and then he does the hand.
Yeah. Allison was like, we're not gonna do any like weird hand gestures to reveal anything. And then they're like, all right, it's muted. And then Seth Meyers goes, we found out that you're the killer. Or you're a bad guy.
Yeah. So the fact that like people still think that she was like hypnotized or something is just hilarious to me.
Yeah. And then also in that interview, it was funny because Allison revealed that to make a horror movie, it's not scary. It just starts to get super repetitive a lot of the time. So a lot of the humor and stuff that he was throwing in the movie, they're like, it's not funny anymore. This is getting so many takes, so many whatever. And so she said to lighten up the mood, he would then start directing Barack Obama.
And then he went into Tracy Williams, he said. Because she was like...
Tracy Morgan,
because she was like, because at that time Obama was leaving office, so it wasn't that funny anymore.
Tracy Morgan is always a funny thing to do, so that's
Yep. So let's get into the sunken place scene, which might be one of my favorite scenes in the movie, just because the first time I watched it, I wasn't expecting how beautiful the sunken place was when he like drops into it, but also how terrifying it is that he's trying to crawl his way back up, and all you hear is Catherine Keener's like the tea and the spoon. And you're just like, that's fucking terrifying, because now you have no control.
No control whatsoever. And then like later, like the last time it happens to him, when he's doing it, and then he's like mad at all of them and just hates them and just wants to get out. Mm-hmm. And then Rose, she's like, you were one of my favorites. And she's like, oh my god, just like the thought of, like how like a movie like is kind of like can be like claustrophobic. Maybe you watch like Ryan Reynolds' Buried, or just any movie that makes you feel really claustrophobic or just uncomfortable for whatever reason. Like this one also makes me feel very claustrophobic, like it's something that you can't get out of, but you desperately want to, and the thought of being there forever, like, do you die in there? Do you just live forever in there? That's like a crippling.
That
thought
might be
to-
worse if you're still like conscious, but you know someone else is like in your body. That's gotta be fucking terrifying.
Yeah. Oh, and the fact. Oh, that's the other kind of thing. The sunken place is basically the thing that one of his it reenacts one of the worst moments of his life where he couldn't help his mother, but there was time to help his mother, but all he was doing
Yeah.
was just watching TV, and that's exactly what you are doing in the sunken places. You're just watching a television,
And you can't
and
do
you have
anything.
no control at all.
I didn't think
It's
about that.
brilliant.
I didn't think about that.
And the other thing
Wow.
that I wanted to add about the sunken place that I actually wrote in a letterbox review is that the sunken place kind of reminds me of a state of sleep paralysis. Have you ever felt this? But this is a thing that happens to some people. They think there's a
Yeah.
supernatural element to it. But for me, so when I've experienced this, thankfully it hasn't been in a while, but it's also been that like loss of control. So it reminds me of stuff like that. It's the closest I've ever been to being in a sunken place.
Kerri?
Yeah. And I wonder, I don't know what Jordan Peele has said about the sunken place as like a larger metaphor. I mean, I kind of take it as a lot of the institutionalized racism and the policies that are made in the U.S., which have currently and historically have majority, mostly done by white people in this country at least, have kept Black people specifically, but really any minorities, poor people in general, and people with disabilities, anyone who's basically not like wealthy,
Not white American.
Yeah, keeping them in a place where it's hard to have control over your own life because you don't have access to the same resources as wealthy white people.
Yeah, like you have to fight so hard just to get to a point, just to even get to a point that like a normal person with privilege has been placed at just by being born with privilege. Like you're below that status, socioeconomic status. Like just as like there are poor white people, but like just as like a person with a complexion such as
with
mine,
power,
just has a certain power over certain institutions and things that I have more of an advantage to go in and get a job than someone else who doesn't look like me, who may be even more qualified, maybe not, maybe be the same qualified, but even still, I have probably a higher chance of getting that job or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, great point.
Going off of what Kerri just said, I also wonder if it has to do with white, like I don't want to get too political, but like white police officers incarcerating more African Americans, literally white police officers taking away the control and the freedoms from Black Americans, as in the sunken place where it's literally being done by a white American family.
And forcing inmates to work for because you're working. You're working when you're in prison. You get, I don't know, pennies on the. You get much less than minimum wage.
It's basically legal slavery in the modern era. Is it's not even because it's not even public prisons. They're privatized prisons that are doing this now and making money off of the slave labor that you force people to be there and then you make money off of them and you don't give them the benefit of their labor, which is so messed up.
Yeah, and just like in this movie, how white people are taking over Black people's bodies and consciousness and forcing their bodies to do work for white people.
And that's the whole point of what is the value of a person, and specifically Black people. I think maybe a lot of people feel like they are not valued as a human being with their own like worth. just being
Yeah.
a person. They're valued for, like, when the only way out of, a underprivileged, situation is by basketball or being a rapper or something like that. Like,
Or football or something
or
like
football, but
that.
something. But a lot of it is just like, what can you do for us that makes us happy? And what can you do? But you don't have any worth just being you.
Yeah, it's like the Stephen Root wants Chris for his eye. And
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
me, just rewatching this movie, he doesn't want it necessarily for Chris's eyesight. He wants it for his
Artistic vision.
yes, exactly.
Mm,
And it's
that
it's
doesn't
so
make sense,
interesting to
Stephen Root.
right, exactly. It's so interesting to think that he would think that just by being in his body, he would get that same artistic vision. Where I'm sure it comes
Yep.
from Chris's full, yes,
Experience.
exactly, full experience as a person, like rather than his eyes, his literal eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are like the lines in this movie, especially during the party, where they're like, one lady's like, "Black is in fashion,"
Yeah.
or like, "It's cool to be black," or
Mm-hmm.
mentioning Tiger Woods, Chris, just because he's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They
Like
definitely
how
throw in
smart,
a lot
like,
of the.
yep, how smart it is, like, because that's realistic. Even today, where it's like, people who say I'm not racist or I don't see
But
color, but then in the back of their mind that they say something where it's just like, yeah, that just undid everything you just said a minute ago.
I'm not racist, but
Mm-hmm.
something racist.
Yep. And it
Um,
completely undoes everything they were working for.
exactly. Just the idea of, I would have voted for Obama a third term, or,
Yes.
oh, I love Tiger Woods. Like, what makes you think Chris knows anything about Tiger Woods?
About
You
Tiger
just said you
Woods.
didn't at all, because they're both part black or whatever. He must be a huge Tiger Woods fan. It just doesn't make any
Yep.
sense. It's there's a lot of, like, white people that I don't know anything about or know about, and just because I'm white doesn't mean that I know anything about it. Same thing.
Yeah, and I think this movie was a good kind of wake up call for white liberals to kind of see where the hypocrisy lies. I know I learned a lot from this movie about, like, okay, where can I be better, and where am I saying things that in my mind I think they're something good to say, and they're actually just perpetuating the exact thing
The
I
stigmatism.
yes, exactly. So I know I learned stuff from this movie, and I hope with as wide of a reach that this movie got, that a lot of other people learned things as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a good thing that films like these can do, is just to, like, remind you that you're always going to have some sort of implicit bias. You're always going to have something. I mean, because society in general just has, like, this, like, racial tension that's just there, that exists in the subconscious of pretty much everyone, because we aren't full equal right now, and we're striving for it. Some people are striving against it, but the best thing you can do is not to say, I'm not racist, but the best thing you can do is say, I have bias in my head and I need to be aware of it, so
And it's
that,
something I can work on.
yeah, always working on it. You're never fully perfect. Like, everyone has, like, something, that they could work on, as far as, being, just a good person in that way, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Be good people, ladies and gentlemen. Be good
Right.
people.
Yeah.
But I will say though, like lines like Dean saying, what do you say? I would vote for Obama a third term if I could.
Yeah.
That is what a lot of people are still using today as to be like, oh, racism doesn't exist because Obama was president. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There are still that racism idea and ideology in this country that we cannot stop unless we realize we have a problem with it.
Yeah, that's exactly actually like a whole thing that happens in institutions such as the American government, or whatever. Just like where it's like where you don't you recognize that racism is a bad thing, and so you finally get the one, pardon what I'm about to say, but the one good one from like a group that you may look at as inferior if you are, say, a racist person, and you find the one good one that you can say, look, I like this person. That means I'm not racist. That's my representative. That is my, out for
Yep.
not being a racist. They're not
Again,
willing to do the other
saying
part
like
of
I'm
it.
not racist, saying like I'm not racist because I have black friends.
That's
The exact
exactly,
same thing.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So,
And I know,
Like it doesn't matter.
yeah. Well, I won't say, but yeah, I know. Well, I think we've seen that with some of the people we have around us. We've seen that exact sentiment.
we see it
expressed.
every day.
Yeah.
You just have differing levels of people who, in your life, maybe even you sometimes, have been not the best, progressive person that you can be, where you're the role model, or you emulate the society that you want to see in other, you emulate what you want to see in other people and stuff. And, hopefully everyone who can just set a good example and just remind people, or just have people watch Get Out, and just maybe like Kerri said, or whoever said it, Hunter, Kerri, and
It's
watch this
scary.
movie and actually have a different their mind change. Is
Yeah.
why we keep having these movies made all the time. To
Yeah. I mean, there's a
hopefully,
reason why these movies keeps getting made constantly because no matter what era we're in, it hasn't changed. No matter how many people want to say it's changed, but I will say I love how Jordan Peele didn't in this film outright say that all white people are the enemies as
right?
well. You know what I mean? Like it was just this family, but it was what a majority of Americans
Yeah,
think. And it's more older white people who grew up in that era where it was socially acceptable to have that mindset. So they continue the legacy, which
yeah,
I
exactly.
think as the legacy, sorry, as the generations keep going forward, hopefully we, starting here with my generation, can slowly make that change where it's like, all right, we notice that there's a problem. Let's make the change and make a solution to the problem, and then for future generations, maybe racism won't be a problem anymore. You know what I'm saying?
I I think it'll always be some form of problem, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the pessimist in me, but like I do think it's getting better and everything, and hopefully, yeah, we just need to strive for it to be better. But I wanted to touch on one thing you said briefly about it not saying that like all white people are the problem, but it's making I think it's making a point that the Armitage family is kind of like an archetype for just like white society,
Mhm.
wanting to put people who don't look like them in a sunken place and just use them for what their output, what they can
Yeah.
give them, but not have them valued. I'm reiterating things I've said before, but in a different way,
Yeah.
because you made a
Mhm.
really great point about um, them being some form of like archetype for a society.
I also like in this movie that because I think Jordan Peele could have potentially went the route that Rose isn't in on it, and
Hmm.
he there's no, I don't think there's any good white people in this movie, which at like Chris
No,
and Rod are the heroes of this movie.
Yeah.
Um,
not even the cop.
yeah, no. The cop still, I
He was
mean,
racist.
yeah, checking the idea, that was still
Um,
right. Even though Rose was like trying to hide his identity, it's still racist.
yeah,
Um,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Yeah, Um,
All right, so
I
should we
do.
get to? Oh, go ahead.
No. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was going to go to the alternate ending real quick, but if you have something else to say before
Yes,
we get there.
that's what I wanted to get to as well. Let's go.
So I have it written down. So yes, there is an alternate ending that I believe was on the Blu-ray and the digital release of the film.
It's also on YouTube.
But it's also on YouTube. It says, in the alternate ending of the film, after Chris kills Rose, the police arrive and arrest him. It jumps to 6 months later with Chris in prison, being met by Rod, who is trying to win an unwinnable case to get Chris out of prison. Chris is a martyr, and he is said, "I beat it." According to Peele, he's talking about the inner demon, and that's when he went back to save Georgina after hitting her with a car. He beat his demon of not going to save his mother when he was younger.
Yeah, I love that arc for him, and I just kind of realized at this watch where I was like, oh my god, like that was the change that he needed. That was to save someone that reminded him of his mother when that was one of the demons that he had his whole life as a kid. Just he couldn't do anything, and all he did was just sit there and watch TV. And that's just a really sad thing to just like go your whole life beating yourself up over something you couldn't even change. Even Rose, who is a terrible person, tells him that he couldn't do anything. Like, or was it Rose or was it his mom?
No, I think it was Rose.
Yeah,
It was
and
Rose.
you couldn't do anything. You were just a little kid, and yet still, in his mind, it didn't matter. Like he could have did something, but he didn't even know about it. And you still will go over your mind, and somehow you'll make it your fault because you were there, you existed in the world, and she was laying there dying, and that's alone. And I love that. But the ending itself, the alternate ending, I think it's interesting because if they would have gone with that, that's a very bleak ending, and I know that's a lot of the times all the rage. Like Hereditary is a pretty bleak ending. There's a lot of films that are amazing that have pretty bleak endings. But and I feel like that's actually kind of how you might expect the ending to go. And I think the message there would be to say that, like, even when the white person is wrong, the black person will always not be believed and not be seen as, knowing what's wrong. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like, they will always be on the wrong end of the law and of people's opinions. But I love the fact that they didn't go with this ending. I love that they went with the cheer moment, the funny Laurel Howery moment, because not every movie has to end with this dark, bleak message.
It's interesting because the alternate ending was Jordan Peele's. He said it was his original ending.
Yeah.
But when they filmed both and when they tested it with audiences, they decided to go with the ending that we see is the ending to the movie, because it got so much better praise. And Jordan Peele said he thinks that's a sign of that's because that's what people needed at that moment. This was 2017 when Donald Trump had just gone into office, and that is what people needed. They needed a cheer moment from this movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe not more real. What we would probably say is probably the more realistic ending.
Yeah. So I was watching the commentary that Jordan Peele had, talking about the alternate ending as it played behind, and he said that, as Kerri said, he wanted to go with the alternate ending when Obama was still in office because of the idea of, like, there's no more racism, whatever. He wanted this to be tagged on as, like, there still is, and it's still a problem. But he said that once Obama left office while the movie was still in production, he changed it because he knew that things were going to get worse and people needed a happier ending that sees Chris and Rod as the heroes, not as, more people in jail at the end of the film.
Yeah, and I think he made the right choice because honestly, I mean, I think that saying that racism is still a problem is what the whole movie's saying. I don't think you need that alternate ending to actually get that point across. It would have just been like another, nail or another point for to say, hey, it's still
Yeah.
a thing. But I think this one actually just like to make this kind of almost a perfect movie, a masterpiece. I think the first ending just is so much better. I don't know. It just flows better. I feel like. I feel like even the scene between him and I always forget his name. Rod.
Walter?
Him,
Rod.
him and Rod just like talking with the phone. I just feel like it's a little like wordy and stuff. I was like just critiquing it. Like I don't even know if this is a great scene, but maybe it is. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the scene. I thought it was because also the dialogue opens up with Chris asking about Sid, the dog, which is something that you could see Chris doing, even though he's in jail,
Yeah.
even though he's got all these problems. The one thing he has constant in his life is his dog that he loves.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
of course, that's
so
what we would do too if it was our cats.
yeah, great, great way to open up the dialogue. But what Jordan Peele said about Chris being the martyr is really standing with me as maybe this alternate ending might have been better than the original ending just because of like it's a darker ending, but it also gives you a moment of hope where it's like, yes, like this is realistic, but Chris is the martyr in this situation. Like he is in the right, and he not only beat the Armitage, but he beat his inner demons as well. You know what I mean? Like showing
Yeah.
that like it all comes full circle at the end of the film.
But I mean, I also just feel like, that I mean, it's definitely a good scene, but I think that he already beat his demons and still had a happy ending, and I don't know, I think I like just like that more personally.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kerri?
Yeah, I do like the ending that wound up going the best.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's because I will always prefer a happy ending to a movie, always. Even if it
Me too.
honestly, even if it makes it a worse movie, which I don't, I think here it was the right choice.
Yeah.
But I'll always love a happy ending.
I have an idea. The day we cover Hereditary or Midsommar, or if we do
Or
both in the
both.
same episode,
We're doing both.
Kerri must then pitch the happy alternate
You know
ending
what?
of those
No,
movies.
no, because I honestly, in my opinion, those endings are the happiest it could have turned out.
For Paymon?
Yes, because I was wrecked. I'm gonna tell you.
All right, don't
Well,
let's not
okay.
talk about spoilers for those movies.
I will explain myself if we ever cover Hereditary.
All
I will
right.
explain myself. But I will say I was a wreck during that middle of the movie and I wanted to leave the theater and never watch it again. Then by the end I was like, oh, this is great. I love this movie.
If you're talking about Midsommar, I
No,
did
I'm
not
talking
have the
about
same.
Hereditary. I did love the ending to Midsummer too.
I
I
did as well.
like no,
I know.
it's bullshit.
Me
Go
and
ahead.
Kerri are on that same page. I love the ending to Midsommar. But I can't think of anything else we didn't cover in this film. Can you guys think of anything else?
I'm sure there's stuff we didn't cover, but nothing I can think of to talk about.
Talked about the comedy. We didn't really get into the auction, the silent auction.
That was so creepy. Holy
Yeah.
shit! Because no one was talking,
It was so
Yeah.
silent, and they're just they
and you
know.
just see a picture of Chris in the background.
That
You're
was
just
the
like,
thing with the camera when it pans down and it
And you
slowly
see-
reveals what they're bidding on.
Yeah.
Oh my
Mhm.
god!
Yeah, it's so brilliant.
Yeah, the movie just slowly reveals every little piece of the Grand Armitage plans. The what did I say? Behold the coagula, which is this process of what they do, not just the thing itself. But,
I can't think of anything else that we didn't discuss in kind
and
of details.
the visuals with him in the chair being helpless, just watching the TV. is the same thing.
Just
of
like when he
watching
was a
the
kid.
TV.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's everything represents that one moment in his life that he felt the most helpless.
Yep.
And he got
And he
overcame.
it.
Yep.
I
Really.
love the fact that, like, when Chris escapes from the chair, he, like, bashes Jeremy with a soccer ball or like a tennis ball.
Croquet
He just,
ball, I think.
I think it's a bocce ball. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not rich enough.
Something like
I think
that.
it's croquet,
But he just,
but I
It's
don't
a
know.
croquet ball.
I don't.
Okay.
It might be
You might
bocce.
be
I've
right.
never heard of.
I don't know.
I don't know what a bocce
I don't
ball
know
is.
really what the difference is between
They're the same thing. Let's just say they're the same thing. But yeah,
all right.
Hunter.
So
Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything, right?
yep, pretty sure we covered a lot actually. So next week will be Jordan Peele's Us. I cannot wait to talk about that one.
What? Like,
A very divisive film. I loved Us, so I
Yeah.
cannot wait to talk about it.
surprisingly a divisive film for some reason, but you know.
Yeah. So Chad and Kerri, where can people find you online?
You can find me here. I'm on Letterboxd as English Slayfest. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So obviously, I said here. Yeah, I'm also a Letterbox. I think you just find me Chadwick Webb or Chad Webb, whatever. But yeah, I do the Dill Pickle Movie Network. He has a lot of great stuff over there, but mainly I do Picture This, which is a year. Every month we do a year in the Oscars. We do Best Picture, so we like watch the Best Picture films of that year. We talk about the Oscar ceremony, the actors, the actresses from those movies. We nominate them, and then we also like rank the films themselves and find out what is our best picture of that year. We have a really great time doing it. We're doing the Lord of the Rings right now. Last month we did 2001. This month we did 2002. That video just dropped, so check that out. And the next month we're doing 2003. It's all because of the Lord of the Rings. We're trying to figure out, are all the Lord of the Rings the best pictures of the year in our minds? But watch to find out. And I also do my own ranking channel at Chadwick Webb. Kerri's been on there. We have yet to get Hunter on there. But mainly me and my buddy James Hancock do that show where we rank different things. We've done Christmas, Edgar Wright, Harry Potter. And then we've been working our way through the MCU phase by phase. And we just finally did our phase 3. I'm editing that, going to drop that soon. And then we have plans to do Star Wars, Denis Villeneuve. After that, I also do movie Battleground, where I did a title match against Henry Sanchez. I do not think that has dropped yet, so I won't say who won that. But looking forward to people watch that. And yeah, I'm just doing like trivia everywhere, and I might have some things coming up that I might plug later on once I start doing them. But yeah, thank you, Hunter. This was fun.
By the way, for Phase 4 of the MCU, if you haven't like recorded that yet, I want to be on if possible.
Okay.
We're gonna do it after Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, because I think that's going to be the end of Phase 4.
Yeah, Wakanda Forever will be the end of Phase 4. Okay.
Cool.
All right, guys. And tonight at 11 Eastern, myself and Zaddy Smith will be going live for the return of Beyond the Throne. We are talking about episode 1 of Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. I am super excited to watch that tonight. So remember, 11 Eastern, tune in for that. We're going to have a great time. If you guys did enjoy this, hit the like button, subscribe to the Entertainment Network down below. Thank you guys for watching. See you soon.